niche from within the range of what you're exposed to. And so for that reason, we wouldn't really call ourselves aligned as a program with any one modality, and that there's room for exposure to and exploration of a really wide range of modalities, that all of your faculty operate from their own different theoretical orientations, that our adjuncts bring in, we try really hard to bring in adjuncts who offer modalities that might not be the full-time faculty members' specialty areas, so that you do get that exposure. So the question about somatic experiencing as a modality, although, like I said, it's not like a focus of the program, we absolutely have had electives on somatic experiencing and using somatics in counseling. And I do know of some faculty who are integrating bodywork more and more into the classes, but it totally depends on the instructor and the class for what's going to feel most relevant, I think. I will say across all 3 campuses, I would say that our faculty tend to have a pretty solid grounding and person-centered, with just sort of the basics of counseling, of exhibiting and cherishing those core conditions of empathy, congruence, and unconditional positive regard as primary to what we do as counselors. And that also another focus of our program is around multiculturalism and social justice and anti-racism work, that you have a faculty here who are committed very much to a focus on anti-racism in our teaching and in our work and in the students that we're training. So there's that. The other question, Jan, was about course formats. Is that right? So we are across all 3 campuses, we are a face-to-face program. That's how we see ourselves. Obviously, COVID has changed that a bit. And obviously, because we are a face-to-face program that is geared toward working adults, we use different formats of courses in order to make our classes more accessible and better with the schedules of working adults. And so although it would not be possible at this point to do our program as a fully online program, we do offer quite a few online classes. And right now, all of our classes are virtual. We're hoping to start moving back to face-to-face in the classroom courses starting this fall, and then increasing back to some version of normal over time. But for the summer, our classes are all virtual, meaning they're either fully online asynchronous, which means you do the work at your own pace over the course of the semester, that there is no set meeting times or meeting time for the course. That's a fully asynchronous online class. We also have hybrid classes, which involve both face-to-face and online components. So where half the time you are meeting for synchronous classes, even though it's virtual, you're coming to Zoom class and getting to see your classmates and your professor. In the hybrid model, that's once every other week during a typical semester, with the asynchronous modules of online discussion forums and engaging with materials, recorded lectures and things in between those face-to-face meetings, which may be virtual. And then we have our fully face-to-face classes, which currently are all virtual, but where you're meeting regularly during a set class time, but that it's virtual, you're meeting in Zoom. So again, as of right now, I know we've had a lot of students start in the last year who aren't local, who are just coming to class from, I've got one in Arizona who comes to class and is able to be there a little bit earlier in her day than we are in ours. And eventually she's gonna have to, or she's planning to move to join us as we move more toward that face-to-face course offering. So even when we get back to normal or to more face-to-face options, we will still have some online offerings. We've always offered hybrid courses, and so that flexibility will stay, but we will not, I don't think, we don't really yet have the resources to have that fully online track. Though, of course, there's always a chance that that could happen, and I think we're always looking at opportunities to best meet the needs of our students. All of our classes are in the evenings, typically somewhere between the hours of 4 and 9, although again, with the growth that we've seen, I know a lot of the faculty are interested in offering courses earlier in the day, but we know that because most of our students work, maintaining those evening courses is a priority to make them accessible. But as we have gotten to the point of needing multiple sections of classes, it may be that over the next few semesters, we're able to offer some afternoon sections. I know we've been in discussion about that. All of our classes meet between Monday and Thursdays. We don't have classes on Fridays unless there's special circumstances, but and the most that you would meet, the most often you would meet for a class is once a week as of right now. That's how our classes are set up. Let's see, I'll let Dr. Vasilas take over if she's got any.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. You did a great job. I agree. That's a lot of information that we kind of thrown out at you at once. I think at the end of the day, it's just that it's our heart's desire to make sure that we're meeting the needs of each individual student that joins us and gets to journey on this process to becoming a professional counselor with us. So I don't know, I think that was really the main questions, Jan, that you got. I don't know if we wanted to open it up to everyone, if you had any specific questions. But maybe before you guys do that, I'll just tell you just a little bit about me and just kind of where I come from and what I contribute to the counseling program. So I've been with LR almost, 11 years now. So I, along with Dr. Gray, were 2 faculty members only in the counseling program, with the exception we had Dr. Amy Wood, who is the Dean of the Graduate School. She worked with us part-time, but we've seen kind of a significant growth from going from 2 faculty members to 8, 8 of us now that are... Will be, yeah. 8 faculty members. So it's been a joy and quite the experience kind of going from a small kind of intimate program to such a large program. But I think one of the things that we have tried and been intentional about is, even though we are growing, is that, again, it's our desire to ensure that that student attention, that individualized attention is never missed, and that we are trying to make sure that we come alongside of each one of you in whatever way that you need at the moment. So I think you won't miss that. Even though some of your classes may feel a little bit larger, what I mean by large is, I think maybe the largest class that we have had, maybe Myra, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 30, maybe 40 students. But I think at the end of the day, the faculty member, whoever teaches that class, is always accessible and tries to make sure that if you, the student, has individual questions or maybe needs a little bit more support or guidance in understanding the material, that we will find time outside of class to meet those needs and answer those questions. So what do I do in the meantime? So I also still work in private practice when I have time, outside of being a mom and professor. But in my private practice, I primarily specialize in crisis and trauma work, specifically with law enforcement and military. So anytime there's a critical incident, unfortunately in this day and age where we see a lot of social injustices and issues going on, I get called into the law enforcement offices to work with law enforcement officers to help them process trauma, any issues that may be going on, but also I get to help facilitate conversations around just their own kind of awareness, their own awareness around their own privileges if they are white officers. And so I kind of introduce those conversations in a way in which that our officers feel supported and heard, but hopefully help them I guess not only be safe, but also continue to be able to do their job in a way that helps their communities feel safe and heard and protected. So yeah, I do a lot of work in that area. It's primarily my specialty. So, but yeah, if we want to open it up, we'd be excited to hear what you guys had questions about.
I would say if you do have questions, feel free to speak up or to put them in the chat box. I've got mine open and we'll keep an eye on that. And also, Dr. Vasilas did such a nice job. I didn't even introduce myself, really, but oh, there we go. I'm based on the Asheville campus, and Dr. Carrie Finfausen and I are the two folks. As of right now, we have a third person joining us this fall, but I have been here, the program in Asheville has been here since 2012 with Dr. Finfausen, and I joined full-time in 2014. And so, yeah, we've also grown quite a bit. And I typically teach the counseling theories class, which most students take in their very first semester, unless you start in summer. And the diversity issues course, which is really where my research and teaching passions are. And then also I often teach practicum. Let's see. I see some questions. There is a roadmap that what we will do is once you're enrolled, Jan and Nichole get you set up with your first semester coursework. And then once you're in the program and during your first couple of weeks to a month in the program, you'll set up an advising appointment with your academic advisor, who will be one of the full-time faculty members at your campus. And they will outline an advising grid with you that shows you all of the coursework that you need and when you'll take what and when you would graduate, depending on how many classes you want to take at a time. Let's see, full-time, part-time. Within our program, we call 3 classes or 9 credits in fall or spring full-time. 2 classes or 6 credits in the summer would be considered full-time. But aside, an important aside is federal financial aid says you only need 2 classes, fall, spring, and summer each semester to be considered full-time for loans. So most of our students take 2 classes at a time in order to meet what they need to get the financial aid, but that would be considered a part-time student in our program. Often students ask, can I take more than 3 classes? And we typically do not allow it during the first semester that you're in the program. But if you started this fall, for example, with 3 classes, did really well, and came back to your academic advisor and said, hey, that was easy, I really want to do another, we wouldn't argue with you as long as you that even sounds bad. We would help support you in finding a good 4th class to add. I'll say that doesn't happen very often. Usually 3 is full-time in our program, but we are open to that process. All right. Let's see. Deadlines are rolling. How long is the program for? So if you're taking 3 classes in fall and spring and 2 in the summers, you can be done in 8 semesters. So including summers, that's just over 2.5 years. If you're doing 2 classes per semester regularly across the 3 semesters per year, that takes a total of 10 semesters, which is about just under 3.5 years. Tour depends on which campus, I think, but I would say all campuses, it's possible to come and visit. We mask and do. But that you just have to schedule it and set it up with Jan or Nichole, I think. Deadlines are rolling. Are we participating in conferences? Sure, yeah, because most conferences are virtual these days, I think we're all doing our best to maintain our connection with our own professional development and professional organizations. I'm hoping to attend one of our counselor educator conferences this fall, actually face-to-face with other humans. We will see how that goes. Let's see. Lenoir-Rhyne, offering face-to-face classes this fall is still a little bit up in the air, just because we don't know what the restrictions from North Carolina and South Carolina are going to look like. Undergrad is offering face-to-face classes. Grad programs have been sort of based on program need, student need. I will say the biggest issue at the Asheville campus right now is that our classrooms aren't big enough for the social distancing that would need to happen to be able to house enough students for the size of our classes, even our smaller classes of 15 to 20. And as soon as those restrictions are brought back down and vaccines are vaccines are more and more accessible, that is the hope, that we will be moving back to face-to-face this fall. And it's looking pretty good. I'm feeling interns, but we do help facilitate the process of y'all finding your practicum and internship sites. My computer just told me my internet is unstable, so if I cut in and out, I apologize. Let's see, internships, we have a list around all three campuses and are always adding to those lists and building connections with community support you in that process of applying for practicum and internship sites. Yes, this meeting is being recorded. Clinical hours, we have a whole track of skills-based or clinical-based coursework, starting with a basic techniques class, moving through advanced techniques, and then into the field placement courses, which are one semester of practicum, which is like a mini internship, and 2 full semesters of internship. Hours, we follow CACREP accrediting standards and licensure standards around those, so that you need 100 total hours for practicum at a site, and you need 300 total hours for each semester of internship at that site. Yeah, placement, we support you through that process. To your clinical coordinator on your campus, and they approve you to go ahead and contact different options that you list as your top choices. You reach out to those agencies and apply through whatever process the agency has. School counseling students, that's different. School counseling placement coordinator who helps facilitate those placements. Jan, I like that. About the summer deadline is now. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as those social distancing pieces have gone down, it makes it a lot easier for us to think about being back in our classroom spaces, which is really exciting. So I'm actually meeting with one of my classes. Our final meeting is Thursday night, and we're going to meet face to face because we've all been vaccinated, and it feels really woohoo. There is not an addiction specific track. All of our students are required to take an addictions course. That's a CACREP standard. And for any specialty area, we encourage you to gear your papers and projects in all of your coursework across the program toward your population of interest, your area of focus, focus, so that even though it's not an official specialty or a specific certification, that you have the exposure and experience and sort of the goods to back it up as being a real focus area for you. The extent that we are informed by the Lutheran foundations, that's a really great question that we get a lot. I would say my experience as a faculty member at Lenoir-Rhyne, I'm not Lutheran, and although there are certainly parts of the Lutheran traditions that mean a lot to me, specifically around social justice and advocacy and service, those types of values really resonate with not just me, but also with our profession. So in that way, there's certainly overlap, and there is an encouragement of the values that our students bring with them to the work that they want to do as counselors. So if that is Christian Lutheran values, you will have support around that. Though also we're not the type of program that requires any kind of religious covenant or statement. I think your faculty come from a wide range of backgrounds around religion and are open to that. I think it's also, I'll be honest, pretty campus, not specific, but Asheville is Asheville. And so there tends to be a much wider range of belief systems among our students than what we typically see in the Hickory and Columbia-based students, but I think students of all backgrounds would be welcomed on all three campuses. I know that. Let's see. Thank you for reposting that. Let's see. Electives, yes. So for clinical mental health students, you're required to take at least 2 electives in order to get your degree. And those, we try to meet the needs of our students. And the desires and interests of our students. And that's true across all 3 campuses. There are a handful of them that are offered very regularly. For example, our trauma elective, many of us would argue it should be a required course, and a lot of our students really want it. And so that's one that, like, lately it's been offered every semester. Some other courses that are offered regularly as electives, spirituality counseling. Right now, Dr. Swindle's offering one on spirituality in counseling and religious abuse in counseling. Let's see, I offer a sexuality counseling elective really regularly, a child and adolescent counseling elective, a somatic experiencing elective, mindfulness. We've had a 3rd wave CBT class that's been offered a number of times in Asheville. There's some psychology professors on the Hickory campus who offer some really cool ones around sand tray therapy and what else? Expressive arts therapy is one that's offered really regularly. So it depends on what students want and what's available as far as faculty.
Dr. Jordan, is narrative healthcare and the narrative therapy a part of, can that also be part of the clinical mental health counseling?
Yeah, so not only would there be a place for having a narrative therapy focus in your clinical work just within our program, in your first semester in counseling theories, you articulate your theoretical orientation as you see it at that point. So if it's narrative, you right off the bat have that opportunity to really explore that approach. And in Asheville, we've got it's now an MFA, our writing program. We've got a faculty member who's really focused on narrative healthcare. And so those writing courses could also absolutely be considered electives within our program. We tend to, so if you wanted to take an elective outside of our program in one of the other grad programs at LR or outside of LR, as long as you can provide a rationale for how it's going to support your development as a counselor, we typically approve those and support that kind of interdisciplinary elective taking. Not that I know of about faculty having experience with psychedelic therapy. I can't speak for all of us, but I know it's not a primary focus for any of us. And that's another one that has been coming up more and more lately with our students, of that being an area of interest. So that is absolutely something that we can help build connections around, and help support you in finding research around that too. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, Jan answered about GA positions. The best way to save money on tuition, I would say, is through our LR Partners program, which Jan and Nichole can talk some about too. And that's a really amazing program where we've connected with companies, organizations, agencies in our communities, and where they sign up with us and we sign up with them, and students who are also employed at those places get a discount of up to 20% on tuition, which is pretty sweet. Even if you only work part-time, which is even better. So yeah, there's a growing list of those. Oh, favorite class to teach for me is diversity, hands down. So all of the art behind me is from reflections from that class. And there's more, but Dr. Vasilas, did you want to answer?
Yeah. Now, my favorite class, I guess if I had to pick one, would be I teach the clinical internships. So I get to kind of help you guys mold and shape into becoming the counselors that you guys are going to be. And that's always exciting and a scary time, of course, for everybody as you're stepping out into it. But it's so rewarding to watch the amount of growth that takes place during that time. So that would probably be my favorite.
I'll also say, I always like to tell students and prospective students that this mattered to me when I was looking at grad schools, is that your faculty, I really love my job. I really love what I get to do. I love working with my colleagues, with Dr. Vasilas and Dr. Finvausen and Dr. Robinson. And we've got a really great faculty who, and I will say COVID has given us the opportunity to connect even more across the 3 campuses, which has been a really cool piece over the past year and a half or so. So I just always think it's helpful to know that your faculty like what they do. I like to say that. It's just a really, we also talk a lot about our program involving, in addition to the content that you'll be learning, there's a definite expectation that students will engage with ongoing self-reflection, and we encourage our students to be doing your own work in counseling and in whatever that process looks like for you. We do offer free counseling to all of our students, not through the program, but through the university and connected agencies in Asheville and Columbia. But that process of self-reflection can really create an experience in the program that's transformative for our students. And so we often say that the person you come into the program as will not be the same person you are when you get to Dr. Vasilas as an intern. And that's sort of our hope, is that our students experience that type of development and growth and challenge while they're here. The comps, yes. So we have a comprehensive exam. Many counseling programs do. The intention for us is that we know that you've had all of the relevant content that you need to be successful, not only as a counselor, like in practice, but also in passing the licensure exam, which most students take in their last semester or 2 of the program. So the comps, it's a multiple choice exam that's, we've had it done in a couple of formats recently, but it's sort of just a basic standardized test that really stinks, but is done with the intention of getting you ready for the licensure exam, which is a very similar format. Most of our do just fine and pass with no issue. You get 2 attempts at that. Most students don't need to take it more than once. And those who do struggle, we do our best to work with you and support you. And especially if we have students who we believe have the content knowledge and just struggle with test taking, we've offered oral exams and things like that. Go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, so I was actually going to piggyback on what you had mentioned about the licensure exam, because I think I've seen a couple questions about licensure process. So I first want to let you guys know that this program is in preparation for licensure. You will not be licensed when you graduate this program. However, when you reach internship, and there'll be a few other places throughout the program, we do talk about the licensure process, but once you graduate is when the licensure process begins. The licensure exam is just one of those requirements that you will have met as a student in the counseling program. That's one of the benefits of you being in a KCREP accredited program. We have the opportunity to provide you the early licensure exam while you're a student during your last semester. But once you graduate, then you'll have to complete the application and the additional requirements. One of those requirements is the hour requirement. So post-graduation, you will have to accrue a minimum of 3,000 hours clinical work. That clinical work, of course, hopefully you all will be in places of employment. Many times we have seen our students become employed by their internship sites. So that's a nice rollover. You get to kind of stay with the population that you've been working. In addition, many of those sites will offer supervision for your post-licensure experience. However, if your site does not provide that licensure kind of oversight and supervision for those hours, you will have to find a supervisor. And the supervisor, I typically like to tell students that if you're budgeting post-graduation, because you can't qualify for your FAFSAs or student loans at that point, once you're no longer a student, this becomes kind of an issue of your budgeting, right? So on average, for you to find and secure a licensed professional supervisor who's qualified by the state of North Carolina to oversee those 3,000 hours, they typically charge between, on average, $90 to $150 per hour. Now that becomes important because in the state of North Carolina, they require that you meet with that supervisor a minimum of 100 hours. So if you just take 100 times 100, that's at minimum how much you'll need to budget for supervision during that 3,000 hours. On average, it takes someone a minimum of 2 years to complete the licensure, those 3,000 hours. The good news is that even though you're in the entry-level licensure process, which is in North Carolina called associate, in South Carolina, it's also called the associate status, you're still eligible to receive payment. So you can work in a mental health office, you can even work in private practice and still receive funding or payment for your services. There's many insurance companies that will reimburse. And to be honest, guys, there are a few insurance companies that actually pay licensed associates at a better rate than they do full licensure. And the reason that is because they know that that associate it's almost like you're getting 2 for 1, right? You're getting their supervisor and you're getting that associate at the cost so that they know you're really providing kind of the best quality care for doing that. So it's 3,000 hours post. There'll be another exam on top of your licensure exam that you have to take. In the state of North Carolina, it's called the Jurisprudence Exam, and that's a legal exam. You're going to have to know the laws in the state of North Carolina surrounding mental health and the job that we do. Again, your program is going to introduce you to that. The licensure board has briefs and documents that you can review in preparation for that, but that is another exam that comes with a fee as well. So again, you're going to get more information when you're in the program, but that is a very good question because we do see a lot of students that aren't really aware of the additional work beyond just getting a degree that is required for this profession.
I'll also add on to that as of right now, those licensure requirements do vary by state. And so obviously we're really familiar with the licensure requirements in North Carolina. And if you're interested in seeking licensure in a different state, we do our best to help support you through that process. And sometimes different states require additional coursework that isn't required in North Carolina or is beyond KCREP requirements. For example, I know Florida requires a sexuality class. And so that's part of why we offer it as an elective. And so we would just encourage you to take a look at the licensure board websites for whichever states you're thinking of, so you can make sure that you're getting what you need out of the program before you graduate. Loan forgiveness, I think Jan may be able to speak to that a little bit more than I can. Yeah.
I'll post that. Yeah, we'll talk about that afterwards, and we've got it on our slideshow presentation, so we can talk about it later. Yeah, yeah.
Yay. Well, if anyone has any other questions, I'll go ahead and type my email and Dr. Vasilas' in, because I think I got a laptop here a little easier. So feel free to reach out to either of us with any questions that you have specifically about the program. If you have questions about specific classes or internships or campus-based stuff, we're also happy to be resources for y'all. We also sometimes are able to offer the opportunity for students to sit in on classes. It's a little bit tricky these days with virtual classes. And right now we're between semesters, but if you're applying for fall and would want to sit in virtually on a summer course, that's something that we, Jan can help us facilitate for you this summer. Or if you're even further out, we could do that in the fall or spring. But it's great to see all this interest and to see your faces.
Alrighty. Are we okay? I think we're good. Questions answered. Okay. And like Dr. Jordan said, if y'all have any other questions in regards to the program itself, feel free to reach out to either Dr. Jordan, Dr. Vasilas, and they will be more than happy to help answer those for you. So yeah, thank you to you both, Dr. Jordan, Dr. Vasilas, for taking time out of your day to be here with our prospective students, or even newly enrolled students for summer and fall. So we really appreciate it. And we'll let you go at this point. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Okay, so at this point in our sessions is when we typically go over our admission requirements, information about financial aid, and then answer any questions that y'all have regarding enrollment specifically. So depending on where you're at in the enrollment process, you know, it does not hurt our feelings if you've already been accepted to our program and don't really have questions about the admission requirements and you need to cut out, or if you have to get back to work because it is midday during your lunch hour, it does not hurt our feelings either if you have to cut out for that reason. So we are recording this session, and Jan mentioned in the chat that she will send that YouTube link to you all.
so that you can watch it at a later time if you do have to leave. So I do have a PowerPoint. I always say in these sessions that I'm very much a visual person and like to see the information presented. So I'm going to present this for you guys. That way you have something to kind of look at and go off of. But feel free to keep messaging your questions in the chat, or, you know, I'm never offended if you need to unmute and ask questions. I know it's kind of awkward in a Zoom meeting to speak out about questions that you have, but don't hesitate to do so if you're comfortable with that. So bear with me as I share my screen with you guys. Okay, Jan, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the PowerPoint? Yes, okay, perfect. Alrighty, and I'm gonna kind of skip through some of this because I think that Dr. Jordan and Dr. Vasilas did a really great job of kind of letting y'all know about, you know, our mission as a university and in our values as a counseling program. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that just for the sake of keeping this kind of short, but certainly if you have questions, again, feel free to let us know. So this is, again, just about Lenoir-Rhyne. I do want to just, again, highlight our graduate school as kind of the structure of our program here. Again, we do offer our counseling program on our 3 different campus locations, so Hickory, Asheville, and Columbia, with our main campus being here in Hickory, that also houses our undergraduate students. We try to keep our class sizes relatively small. I know Dr. Vasilas mentioned that there have been past semesters where our classes did get to about 30, maybe even 40 students, but they try to keep the cap at about 20 to 25. And then the further you get in the program, you might find that you only have about 15 students in your classes. So it does vary, but typically when you start out, especially if you're looking at enrolling in the fall, which is our largest enrollment cycle, you might expect to have at least like 25 students in your classes on average. We did get questions about the amount of classes to take each semester, which I think Dr. Jordan did a good job of covering that. Just from my experience as a grad student myself, when I started out, I was working part-time in doing grad school. And so I started out by taking 3 classes at a time. Certainly it's different for everybody and their circumstances. I think our faculty do a really good job of being considerate for those who do have a lot going on outside of school. So, you know, work, parents, children, I mean, whatever it is that you've got going on, we try to make our program as flexible as possible. But typically most students, if you're working part-time, they'll take 3 classes at a time. And then if you work full-time or have a lot kind of going on outside of school, typically those students will take 2 classes at a time. So it just kind of depends on what you want your workload to look like. But I would say that is a really big benefit of our program, is that there is that flexibility built in to where, you know, life happens and your semesters might look different from one to the next. So you have that flexibility to kind of structure the program as you need. These are all of our graduate programs that we offer, but again, counseling we offer in Hickory, Asheville, and Columbia. Here are just some highlights of our Hickory campus. So for those of you that either have been to our Hickory campus or have not yet visited with us, this house in the middle here is where our graduate school is located, and our offices for enrollment are located. So if you ever do want to come by campus and say hello to us, this is where you can find us. And we are located in between Lord Missions Hall and University Christian High School. And then here to the right is the Rhyne building, where most of your counseling classes will be located. And then we also have the beautiful Asheville campus. So Our Asheville Center is located in the Chamber of Commerce building on the 2nd and 3rd floors of that building. And certainly up to date and more, I guess, modern, you could say, with the classrooms, but definitely in a beautiful location, has the best views of Asheville, and so is located in downtown Asheville in that building. So that's where you can find us. I think we did get a question about visits to campuses, I believe. So certainly we are scheduling more visits to our campuses now that, you know, the vaccine's out and, you know, fingers crossed, COVID is kind of making its way out slowly but surely. So of course, with, you know, COVID restrictions in mind, we're allowing campus visits. We try to social distance, always bring a mask if you come to campus, but we are certainly open to scheduling those visits with you all if you would like to see any of our campus locations. This is also our Columbia campus. So our Columbia campus, we are partnered with the Lutheran Theological Southern Seminary. And so our counseling classes are housed on our main campus here. And we also have our Health Sciences Center, which is where our occupational therapy program for our Columbia students is housed. And we are located pretty close to downtown area of Columbia. So certainly a beautiful campus as well. Dr. Jordan did highlight on this as far as the structure of classes, but again, if it is a synchronous course, those classes are going to be offered in the evenings typically, and typically one night per week, a lot of times one night every other week as well. So it's not like you'll be having class, you know, every single week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. You definitely have some time in between your class sessions. So just keep that in mind. You know, whenever you're trying to plan out your schedule, you're not going to be required to meet as frequently as what you might be used to as an undergraduate student. And the majority of our students do work full time. I'll say from experience too, once you get to the internship semesters of the program, it is a little more challenging to work and balance that with your internship hours that you have to get each semester. I will say that school counseling students a lot of times can get hired or will get hired as a school counselor and can start working as a school counselor before they graduate, which is a really great opportunity for school counseling students. And a lot of times you can get paid for that. So just something to keep in mind if you are looking at the school counseling track. But it is a little bit more challenging. A lot of students do have to work with their current employer to kind of work out their schedule once they get to the internship semesters. Okay, so the application process. Our application for the counseling program is an online application. And the link is provided there. You just go to our main webpage. You can search graduate studies and go to our application page and it'll take you to it. The first step is creating your account. When you go into apply, you'll want to select that you're applying with a graduate application, the program that you're applying to, and the campus location. So you'll want to make sure that you identify if you're applying for clinical or school, and again, which campus that you're most interested in. We do get the question quite often, if students, you know, apply to one campus, can they switch that? Certainly, you know, depending on your situation, if you need to switch from the Hickory campus to the Asheville campus or vice versa, or Columbia, we can work with you on having that done. So. And then also with our counseling programs, we do get the question too, counseling students can pursue both tracks. There is not an application option for this, but it goes from being a 61 credit hour program to a 67 credit hour program. So If you do want to pursue both tracks, we just advise that you select the track that you're most interested in, and then you kind of decide during your time in the program if you want to get that that add-on for that licensure, if you choose to do that. So also we can waive your application fee. So normally the fee is $35 to apply, but I think it's on the last page of the application form. If you just use the code BEARS, you could use Jan's first name, my first name, but if you use that code, it'll waive that application fee for you. There will be a question on your application that asks if you want to apply through our career admission track. And at this time, we ask that you select yes to that question. And I will explain why here in just a minute. But also in regards to official transcripts, we accept them electronically or by mail. So you can send them electronically to that address listed there, or by mail to that physical address listed there as well. Please know that we do need all of your official transcripts from previous institutions. So whether you attended one four-year institution or if you attended a community college here and there while finishing out your bachelor's degree, we do need each individual transcript from each institution. So please keep that in mind when you're applying. And you'll want to make sure that you list each school on your application form. Okay, so application deadlines. Our preferred deadline for the summer 21 term is quickly approaching on May 3rd. As Jan kind of joked about in the chat earlier, if you're looking at summer, please get your application in as soon as possible. The sooner the better is kind of what we say with that. And classes, I believe for the summer will begin on May 24th. So really completing your application by this deadline just ensures the most seamless enrollment process possible. But if by chance we're still waiting on a transcript to come in, or you're waiting on your letter of recommendation to come back, just know we'll still work with you after this deadline if needed. The preferred deadline for the fall is going to be August 2nd. So you do have a bit more time if you're looking at the fall semester to get your application in, but just know that, again, the sooner the better. And you can go ahead and apply for fall if you haven't done so already. That application is open. Also, I'll mention before I move forward, say you apply for summer and then it gets to be the start of, closer to the start of summer classes and you're like, oh gosh, I'm not ready to start grad school after all, or maybe something happens in life and you're just not in the best place to start. We can term change your application to a different term. So if you wanted to start in the fall per se, or even next spring instead, Jan and I can certainly work with you on that. Okay, so our current admission requirements. So if there is any benefit that has come out of COVID, I always say that this is probably one of them for graduate students or graduate applicants. So due to COVID-19, we have decided to waive the test requirement for counseling students. Traditionally, counseling students had the option to take the MAT, which is the Miller Analogies test, or the GRE. And so we have decided to waive those test requirements officially for the summer and for the fall on a case-by-case basis for most programs. So as long as you meet our general admission requirements, this test requirement will be waived for you. We have gotten some questions about future semesters as far as like spring of 22 and further out. I would say at this time, we haven't made any final decisions, but if you go ahead and apply, certainly we would honor that, in waiving that test requirement. But just know for the summer and the fall, it is definitely waived. So with that being said, our current admission requirements include submitting your application form. So that is the first step. When you apply, please select yes that you're applying through our career admission track. So what that means is we have a career admission track, and those students pre-COVID automatically had their test requirement waived. And so with us waiving this test requirement for everyone, we ask that you go ahead and just select yes to that question, because it will automatically waive that test requirement for you. So just be mindful of that when you're filling out that application form. Once you have the application form complete, please go ahead and submit. Submit that form, and then you will see where you can upload these other items for admission that we are currently requiring. So we do look for a minimum cumulative GPA of a 2.7. Again, we expect all official transcripts from previous institutions. Once we receive those, you'll see them checked off of your checklist in your application. We require one letter of recommendation in place of that test requirement. So this could come from a faculty member, employer, supervisor, just somebody who you feel like will support you in your graduate application process and can attest to your abilities to succeed in a graduate program. A resume and essay. So for the essay, we look for about 2 pages, double spaced. And just for the essay is really an opportunity for us to learn about you as a student. You know, you can talk about any life, career, education experiences that may have led you to the decision to apply to graduate school, why you feel like you'd be a good fit for our program here at Lenoir-Rhyne. And then also you can certainly talk about any career aspirations or goals that you have for yourself once you've earned your degree, or any area of counseling that you'd like to focus in. So those are some of the guidelines for that essay. And then if by chance you do not meet one of these admission requirements, because we are waiving that test requirement, we might ask for an interview with some of our counseling faculty. But again, that is very much so on a case-by-case basis. So that is not an official requirement, but just be mindful that that could come into play if needed. So this was pre-COVID too, as far as having the test requirement waived. Again, it is waived for the summer and fall, but pre-COVID, we would waive the test requirement for students with a cumulative 3.5 GPA or higher. Also, if you've already earned a master's degree with a 3.0, then we could waive it as well. If you choose to take a test, maybe you're applying to different institutions and you would like to send your test scores to us, certainly we will still accept those. Again, for counseling students, we look for the MAT or the GRE, and these are the minimum requirements that we look for. So 390 or above on the MAT, a 147 on the verbal quantitative sections, 3.5 on the analytical writing for the GRE. And these are the school codes that you can use to have those test scores sent to us. Okay, lastly, and everybody's favorite part is cost and financial aid. So for the 2021-2022 academic year, our academic year starts in the summer of each year, so typically June 1st, I think. The cost is applied per credit hour. So for the, again, 2021-2022 academic year, the cost per credit hour is going to be $670 per credit hour. And so again, with students having flexibility in the amount of credit hours that they can take each semester, that will vary your tuition cost each semester. So just know for this upcoming year, it is $670 per credit hour. As far as paying for graduate school, I would say that the majority of our graduate students do have to apply for financial aid through the FAFSA. But just know that if you do choose to apply for financial aid through the FAFSA, graduate students are eligible to receive up to $20,000 $500 per academic year, and that is through the direct unsubsidized loan. That $20,500 per academic year can be split between your fall, spring, and summer semesters if you choose to take summer classes. You would simply work with our financial aid office to have that dispersed between fall, spring, and summer if you choose to take summer classes. There is what we call, or what they call the Graduate Plus loan. So say you need additional aid in addition to that $20,500, that's where this Graduate Plus loan would come into play. So what that does is it kind of bridges the gap between your cost of attendance and additional financial aid that you receive through that direct unsubsidized loan. So most of our counseling students do not typically apply for the Grad Plus loan, but it does depend on your financial need. But most of the time that's for like our occupational therapy students who have a significantly higher tuition rate. So just keep that in mind. We do get the question, are there any grants, institutional grants or scholarships that grad students can apply for through Lenoir-Rhyne? And unfortunately at this time, there are no grants or scholarships that we offer for our graduate students. The majority of that is offered for our undergraduate population, but certainly when we hear of, or our faculty, counseling faculty hears of any external scholarship opportunities that our counseling students can apply for, we try to send that information out. And I know that our counseling faculty are pretty good about sending that info out to students as well. Certainly there's private loan options that students can look into. There's the North Carolina Student Assist Loan that a lot of students aren't as familiar with, but this is through cfnc.org. And so with this loan, there's no prepayment, origination, or application fees. You do have to be a North Carolina resident and or attending a North Carolina school to apply for this loan, but definitely something worth looking into and comparing to that direct unsubsidized loan as well. I think we had a question about the forgivable loans. And so there is a forgivable education loan for service, which is referred to as FELS, and that is through CFNC as well. With that loan, students do have to agree to work in an employment shortage field within the state of North Carolina for a certain amount of years in order to receive loan forgiveness. I know that clinical students qualify for this, but I don't believe that school counseling students do. But definitely something worth looking into as far as having loans forgiven, depending on how long you plan to work in the field. So that website is provided for you there. Okay, and I'll try to make this quick. But other suggestions for paying for your education. So I did put some information in the chat about grad assistantships. These are about 20 hours of work per week. I kind of compare it in a way to work study for undergrad students, but basically you would be hired through a department on campus, mainly on our Hickory campus, to work about 20 hours a week in order to receive a certain amount of tuition remission each year. Last year, it was typically up to 15 credit hours of tuition remission that you could receive. So most students split that between like 6 hours in the fall, 6 in the spring, and 3 in the summer. But if you're only taking 6 credit hours, or maybe you're taking 9, that definitely goes a long way as far as helping with that tuition cost. I'll say that these positions are limited and competitive to get, but most become available to start in the fall. We do not yet know how many we will have for the fall semester, but most of those get posted on our employment webpage in early June, I would say. So just keep checking back on our employment site, and they should be listed under graduate assistantships. And certainly you can apply for any that you think you might want to do, depending on how many are posted. Lastly, Dr. Jordan had mentioned our tuition discount program. So our LR Partners program, we are partnered with several local businesses, agencies, school systems in the Hickory, Asheville, and Columbia areas. So if you are currently working for one of our LR partners, basically employees of that business, agency, school system do get a tuition discount through us. So it could be a 10, 15, or 20% discount. The more employees that go through our grad programs, the higher the discount rate. So if you are not partnered with us and you work for a business or agency that potentially could be, let Jan or myself know about that, and we can connect you with Susie Chandler, who works with our LR partners. Also, the Alumni Advantage discount, this is specific to our alumni at LR. Students can receive a 10, 15, or 20% discount if they have graduated through Lenoir-Rhyne. So, okay. This is lastly just some additional information on applying for federal aid. So again, the FAFSA, most students are familiar with this from undergrad, but you go in and apply. Again, most students apply for that direct unsubsidized loan, and grad students can receive up to $20,500 per academic year. This is our LR school code that you can use for the FAFSA, and then current interest rate. So. Counseling highlights, we've gone over this information for the most part, but here is all of our contact information. So both Jan and myself as your enrollment counselors, but also Dr. Nikki Vasilas, who was our Hickory counseling faculty member here with us, Dr. Myra Jordan, who is our Asheville counseling faculty, and then Dr. Janelle Robinson, who is our Columbia faculty member. So anytime y'all have questions, you know, feel free to reach out to us. One of the things that I've loved about Lenoir-Rhyne is it is a close-knit, tight-knit community and very accessible. Our faculty want to see you succeed. We want to see you succeed. And so anything that we can do to help you, feel free to reach out. We never mind in helping our students enroll, and then also, you know, hopefully graduate from one of our grad programs. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this screen. I can also send this PowerPoint out to anybody who would like it, or just to everybody who attended today. That way you have this information as a reference, because it's always great to look back on too. So I did not get to look at this chat while I was talking, but I think Jan has done a great job of trying to answer questions. But I will open it up for anybody that would like to ask me anything directly, or ask Jan anything directly. Like I said, don't be shy. We're here to answer those questions for you. And then I'll say, if you don't have any questions, I know we're a little bit over 1 o'clock, so feel free to cut out if you need to, but if you want to stick around and see what other people have to say, we welcome that as well.
Hey, Nichole, how many total credit hours are necessary to graduate?
So the counseling program is a total of 61 credit hours.
Got it.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, going through it myself, it's a longer grad program. You know, if you think about, like, for example, our MBA program here at LR is 36 credit hours to complete, and so the counseling program is 61. So just keep that in mind, you know, with the program, but at the same time, it is KCREP accredited. And so within, I think for North Carolina accreditation, most programs have to be at least 60 credit hours, and ours is 61. And it covers all of those all of the requirements for that accreditation. So there's very specific classes that you take in order to meet that in our program. So that's why it's 61 credits.
Thanks.
Good question though. Anybody else? No. I know I talked a lot and really fast, but again, feel free to stick on, but I guess we'll go ahead and conclude our event. But I do just personally want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day to be with us. It means a lot. We're so glad that you're interested in applying to Lenoir-Rhyne, or that you have already applied to Lenoir-Rhyne, or if you've enrolled in our counseling program. We are super excited to have you. So feel free again to reach out to any of us if you have questions. And I hope that everyone has just a wonderful day and great rest of your week. Thank you.
Everybody, yeah, excellent questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you.
There were a lot of good questions.
Oh my gosh, I know, it was great. That was great to have